Hello, Internet, and welcome to our first session of Saturday night's Mistborn. Thanks for joining us here on this lovely Saturday morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time you're watching it. Welcome. We are super excited to be here for our session 0.5. We've done a little bit of prep work leading up to this. Of our new game. It's taking the place of Saturday Night's Apocalypse. We missed the finale of that. We had it 2 weeks ago. You can go check it out on YouTube. It was ridiculous. So yeah, we'll get to what we're doing today here in a bit. I'm going to start with our announcements, talk about what's going on here on our channel and other shows that you can watch. After this program is over today, our next stream will be tomorrow at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock Eastern time. I don't know why I blanked on the time for that. It's been the same for like 2 years. 4 o'clock Eastern time, we're going to be playing our Thursday's Children game. We're playing a system called Vaesen. Savannah runs that. She can talk more about it. But come join us tomorrow. We're finishing up a monster hunting mystery. Otherwise, our schedule for this week should be pretty much normal up until Friday. And unfortunately, we've had some schedule changes with my own travel, and we're not going to be having our games on Friday, Saturday, and possibly Sunday this week. So we'll do other announcements to remind everyone when it comes up. But it's a great time to get up to date on all of the other shows that are going on, too. I think that's about it. I don't think we have any other big announcements going on right now. I'm going to let my players here introduce themselves and talk about anything that they've got going on. And you can give us a little teaser on who you're playing or who your new character is going to be, but we're still kind of deciding some stuff. So that is subject to change. Starting with Savannah.
That's me. Hi. I'm Savvy. I'm at Savvy Seaworth on the internet's, mostly on Twitter. Or you can find my streaming schedule pinned to my page. I am here on this channel Thursdays through Sundays, either running games or playing in them. Like Val said, I run our very long-running Sunday game. Right now we're playing Vaesen, which is a Nordic horror role-playing game. It's based in Scandinavia, and it's based on all of their fun creatures and myths and legends and cryptids, and there's some real fun stuff in there. So if you like that kind of thing, coming out this on Sunday. You can also find me Sunday nights on twitch.tv/lbhackemup playing Dungeons and Dragons. I don't really know what to say about my character. My character is named Violette, and she's a Mistborn. For those of you who know what that means.
We'll talk about that in a minute. Next up is Ryan.
Howdy. I am Ryan. You can find me here every other Saturday on this game right now. And I will be playing Sacha, a noble muggle.
We'll talk more about that copyright infraction here in a minute. Alex, you're next.
Hi, I'm Alex, OMG of some guy on the internet. I'm mostly here on this channel Tuesdays, Thursdays, and sometimes Saturdays. And for today's game, I will be playing Hadzel, who is a ferrochemist.
RJ.
Hey everybody, I'm RJ. You can catch me at RJustice282 on Twitter and Twitch, where I tweet about the nerdy things in my life and sometimes stream my friends. I'm on a lot of shows, and I always tweet whenever I go live on them. Tomorrow in the morning over at the Hype Goblins channel, we're playing D&D 5e, a homebrew campaign. I play a Aasimar cleric sorcerer. We're about to rob a casino. That's gonna be great. Other than that, yeah, sparse playings here and there. Today, I'll be playing ZaKeer, who is a Khandra.
And last up is Morgan. Welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm back. I'm Morgan, or Mojo. This is the only game that I'm in on the channel, but it's fun to be back. I'm playing a character whose name right now is Mouse, but that might change. and they are a misting. Probably a 10-eye, but again, that might also change. Things are still settling.
Yeah, everything is subject to change as we're still in our Session 0 territory. And running this game, I am Val at the Kraken's Crown on Twitter and Twitch. You can find me here Thursdays through Sundays playing games or running them. Other than this game, we just, I think it was mentioned in the chat, start our Saturday night Star Power game is moving on into our Season 2. We just had our Session 0 for that last week. We are converting over from Overarms to Fate. Still going to be going with the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure kind of inspired game, and moving on to some other anime IPs as well. So if you're interested in any of that, definitely come check us out. It will be in 3 Saturdays from now, I believe. We'll tweet because our schedule's a complete mess right now. And yeah, that's it. I'll be the narrator this evening. Y'all ready to get started, talk about some more stuff, get going? All right. So like I said before, we're going to be playing a game called Mistborn, or the Mistborn RPG. It is a role-playing game that's based on the Brandon Sanderson novels of the same name. If you are familiar with that, with those books, you will definitely enjoy what's going to be coming up in this campaign. We're pulling straight from the source material and rolling dice. This, if you haven't heard of Mistborn, or if you are interested in it and you are looking to read those books in the near future, some small or light spoilers that may come up. The events of this game take place before the events of the novels. So big plot events, things like that, aren't going to be spoiled for you. However, there are some smaller details and stuff that kind of comes up in the books and is teased out and is kind of woven into the story, and small reveals along the way. That kind of stuff is going to come up in this game. If those sort of spoilers bother you and you don't want to be ruined for any content of the Mistborn franchise, then go read the books and come back and hang out with us later. But I'm giving the spoiler alert right now that we may get into some subjects here that might give away some of the aspects of those novels. So, but if we do get into any discussions of the book, we're going to try to not discuss any of the events of the novels as much as possible. If for some reason we get into a tangent and start talking about stuff, I ask my players, and I will do the same, that we preemptively kind of acknowledge that we're about to get into some spoiler territory to try to keep things fresh for the audience. But
because
the books
not
came
all
out a
of
long
us
time.
have finished the books.
Yeah, not everyone's finished the books, and but we're gonna do our best here. So anyway, the setting for this game, which we will talk about more as we get into it, but is a world called Scadrial. It's taking place in sort of a dystopian, low fantasy setting, in a sort of a bleak and desolate landscape under the political control of the Final Empire. This empire is divided into several dominances that are lorded over by a small, noble sort of ruling faction, kind of divided by their geographical location. But where this game is going to take place is in the central dominance, in the seat of power, in a city called Luthadel. It is the largest city and sort of the place to be if you are nobility and you're looking to climb the ranks. It also has these sort of densest population, so big, sprawling urban environment, lots of just people crammed into one place trying to survive. There is some terms that we're going to be using here. The sort of common people of this world are called the Ska. They're treated as second-class citizens, used as sort of an indentured workforce, and they're treated like crap. the nobles are the very few, very elite, very wealthy people that lord over the Ska and the common population. And at the pinnacle of power within the Final Empire is a being known as the Lord Ruler. They are sort of the god king of this empire. They have persisted for thousands of years, and they're not only seen as the sort of the political figure of this empire, but also the figure of worship, having a whole religion dedicated to them. That's pretty much all the basics, but as far as like the setting itself, like I said, it's very desolate. There are big sort of volcanoes, mountains that spew out ash into the sky. The clouds are blotted out. The people of this that live in this this horrible landscape have never seen things like stars and green plants. Everything is brown, is drab, is it has kind of evolved to exist in this landscape of ash and oppression. So it's going to be a fun place to play a game, I think. I think that's basically it. I don't want to get too much into an info dump, but I wanted to hit some of those stuff as before we got started. So where we're kind of at right now is, like I said, we've done a little bit of character building already. Most of our players here have fully kind of completed their character sheets. A lot of what we're going to be coming up, well, some of you, based on those expressions, have filled out their character sheets based on some decisions we made beforehand. Have come up, we have stats and stuff and abilities that have been picked out, but we're all that is kind of in flux. We might change some of that today. But most of what we're going to be doing today is coming up with sort of the relationships between the characters and this crew that they form, because the kind of central mechanic of this game is all of you, for one reason or another, have dedicated yourself to a thieving crew who has some sort of unified goal that they're trying to accomplish through crime and intrigue within the city of Luthadel. So let's talk about that a little bit. And this is the point where anybody is free to butt in with questions, and I'll start asking things as I get to the right place in my book here. So this first step in this system to making your character has nothing to do with your character. It is starting with the crew, because the relationships between the five of you are going to be far more important than any of your individual stats. So starting with the crew, we come up with answer some questions and kind of begin to brainstorm what your organization's kind of hierarchy and goals, kind of what it looks like. The questions that we're going to try to go over as a group are: what's your crew's common cause? What's your crew's primary target? What's their preferred method? And other questions that might kind of naturally evolve from those. I think we talked about this a little bit when we were doing our stuff off camera too, and y'all had some ideas, and we can kind of flesh those out a little bit based on if anybody has any new ideas. But your common cause that we came up with before was taking down a great house. How are we feeling about that? Does anybody have any thoughts on their characters and how they want to best tie this your crew's motives into their backstory?
I had kind of two main ideas for why my character might be involved in this. The other, more kind of, let's say, honorable one is as a keeper, and this is going to be a little bit more information for the audience. We are seekers, keepers of knowledge, of information, and so thinking that maybe one reason that my character has agreed to go along with this is that the house that we're targeting is rumored to have, a one-of-a-kind tome or artifact or something that is, worth getting our hands on so that we can, get that knowledge and proliferate it amongst the other keepers. The other idea I had was that I'm actually kind of being directed by the noble house that I am serving under or possibly attached to, and trying to, they are aware of me having these ferrochemical powers and want to, take out the other house. And it's like, okay, you have special magic abilities, you should go deal with this. And obviously there's a whole lot more there. Why aren't they reporting that I have these powers when they are being very actively hunted by the Lord Ruler? But that's it. And we could do some combination of those ideas, but that's kind of where I was at for why my character is likely part of the crew.
Yeah, and like kind of expounding on what you were saying with the keepers, they are like the Ska, seen as sort of second class, referred to as like terrorist people. They are seen as sort of second class citizens, but have been the people of this region have been specifically targeted, and through like selective breeding programs have been sort of created to be sort of docile servants of the noble houses. And the big secret of the keepers is that they are not as sort of docile as they lead others to believe, and actually have this sort of have these powers, or some of them have these powers that they use to sort of proliferate knowledge that has been lost due to the subjugation of the people and the religion of the final empire. So yeah, I think both those are really good motivations. And lead to a lot. The second one leads to a lot of like other like conflicts that might come up, and the first one, while not having maybe so much conflict, does have like some like mysteries to solve and some things that can come in there. Anybody else have any thoughts on how this ties into their characters' motivations? This great house. I know Ryan, you kind of. When we were talking about your character, you said you might have like some sort of history with this house that you're trying to take down because you're coming in this as a noble.
Yes, I think last time we were thinking about it, this particular house that we're targeting was responsible for crushing my noble house, and I don't know how inter-house affairs go. I imagine that I actually don't know, but I don't know if like there are any reprisals that happen like between them if they don't look down on that sort of thing, if they're like, you
there's
got away with it, so you're fine. Or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's really they're left up to their own devices by the Lord Ruler. They fight amongst themselves. There's a lot of scheming and assassinations and things that go on between houses. They don't like publicize it. They will do everything they can to put it off on somebody else to make it for the sake of appearances. They don't want to look like they are as manipulative and conniving as they truly are. But yeah, this sort of thing happens all the time where one house, for whatever motivations, will take out another or target another for their resources or just to get rid of a rival.
Yeah, so I don't know if my motivation is pure vengeance. That seems a little bit boring to me, but maybe when they crushed my house, they took something that I want back, or maybe they have imprisoned some people that were in my family, or something like that, or like some other things besides just straight vengeance that there. And yeah.
Okay. I like that, and like you said, you can flesh out kind of the exact aspects and motivations like as we play. You don't necessarily have to have everything up front because you might not have told everyone on the crew every reason that you have for being involved here. And that goes for everyone. Is you don't have to necessarily have everything planned out. Your characters shouldn't be totally fleshed out when we get started, because it leaves room for growth. I want to talk about a little bit about the house that y'all are planning on before we get into the other characters and how they're planning on being involved here. I kind of wanted it to be one of the great houses that y'all are going against, because it's a little bit bigger. It's a little bit like there's going to be more to the job. It'll take a little bit longer to accomplish. There are 10 great houses that have persisted since the start of since the founding of the Final Empire. I don't want it to be one like the biggest one, because that's House Venture, and they're sort of the subject of most of the novels, or the original trilogy. I was thinking one of the top few. I was actually thinking how there's a house called House Alarial. They're like the third highest in power, have the third most influence out of the 10. I thought
Also-
that would be a good target to have.
There was a house mentioned in one of the books that fell earlier.
I
Free the
think that
story.
I want to say that was House Tikiel.
Yeah, they're certainly
Or-
taking a beating as far as I am in my reread.
Yeah. There's in the books, that there is a subject of one of the houses that are being, and here's the thing about the noble houses is that they kind of rise and fall in favor just because a house, like, just because you took them down in 100 years and
They'll come
they can
back.
rebuild. Yeah.
Mhm.
This won't be like a total, whatever the subject of our game is. And also narrative liberties, not everything here, like what we're doing here doesn't have to like fall in with the canon.
Yeah.
So
I
I'm
also
not
kind of
too
want
worried
us
about
to
that.
leave open the option that maybe we don't succeed too.
Yeah,
So,
well,
like,
that too. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, there could be all sorts of twists and things that come up where, for whatever reason, you might not end up taking out this house. But the target, your common cause right now is to bring down this noble house. So yeah, I wanted to go with House Alarial. One, because I like the name, but also because it kind of falls in like not the most powerful, but they're up there. So that is Elariel for those that care.
I just peeked on Coppermine and I was like, oh, that's why that name is familiar.
Yeah, there's a character,
character
in the book
first
that's
book.
from that
Yeah.
who everyone fucking hates. So
Yeah. Okay. I like it.
yeah.
I have to look it up.
Jan.
Keep going.
All right. All right. I'm adding House Alarial as our target.
House Alarial.
So
Ryan, for your, have you like figured out like timing? Like, have you thought about like, is this like something that happened several years ago, or is this something that happened like recently? Have you kind of like thought about that much?
No, I'm kind of indifferent.
Okay.
I can make it work whichever way. If
Okay.
that makes sense for the group.
Got it.
Like if you do you have like a possible connection in your head?
I'm just thinking like maybe like my character was involved with that somehow as like this lost people in that maybe. So like it's also like has like a similar sort of drive but slightly different.
How interrelated
Like-
are ska nobles like on a day-to-day basis?
I mean they were like it's got work for the nobles, so it could be as like because like housekeepers and like things like that would be part of the house, or like people would like tend the grounds, like whoever. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but
There is also the
that's a
wrinkle
potential
that
connection.
in order to have any kind of allomantic powers, you are at least partially descended from one of the noble
There's also
lines.
that.
So
Yeah, because that's the other thing I'm trying to figure out is because like my character would have some noble blood somehow, so maybe.
It wasn't me.
Anyways, probably not. Okay.
So
but
yeah,
somebody-
because you're coming in this as a ska misting.
Mhm.
So yeah, and so what we have left on the table as far as their interactions is how a ska misting fits into this, how a Khandra fits into this. We talk about the Khandra too when you're ready, RJ, and then how a Mistborn, which I should ask Savannah, because you were the one person who had to do this on your own because you weren't here when we did the character building. Are you a noble Mistborn, a Ska Mistborn?
Yeah, she's noble, but from a new house.
Okay. So a smaller house. Okay. Can you give me the pronunciation of how you're doing your
Name?
Laurent.
How you're saying it? No, your first name first.
Violette.
Violette. Okay.
So full on French.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Very
it's so French.
How do you spell your last name? Your house name?
Laurent.
So this
You're
is the
from
name
the Northern Dominance, got it.
So this is the name of your house,
Mhm.
Laurent. Okay.
How do you start a house? Like what constitute? When does someone just?
It's
Money.
yeah, you have money, but you also it's like hereditary basically. Like if you're in a noble house, you are noble by birth.
How does a new house start?
Well, so house. I mean, in Savannah, you can
and also, if this is too in the weeds too, we can ignore this and we can.
No.
answer this later.
It's a good point. So they would be a smaller house that has existed for a long time. Like they would still have that pedigree, or they might have through like marriages and offshoots of the family. They might be the offshoot of an offshoot of a larger family. That again has persisted in probably one of the other dominances. And are you thinking like has been in another dominance and is moving into the city?
To Luthadel, yeah.
Luthadel? Okay. And trying to make a foothold there. Okay.
Oh, like Renault.
Yeah, basically what makes a family a great house is their ability to get and maintain a keep. And so like basically their own fortress or mansion within the city.
Which is what Violette wants to do.
We're taking your house, scrub.
It's my house now.
Okay.
Perfect
So it's
reasoning
moved.
to want to take down a great house.
Okay.
I mean,
so
this housing market these days, that's kind of the only way to do it.
yeah.
Is to replace them.
Okay.
That's why I'm part of this group.
I'm good with that. So let's talk about our Conjure friend.
Okay. So I was reading up on a lot of things about like how to play Mistborn and stuff. And someone brought up a good point that it's more interesting to play a Kandra who has to uphold the first contract than it is to play a murder hobo Kandra. And I kind of want to shift over to that.
I can agree with that because I was going to talk to you about that too, and it would probably we'd have to put some like severe consequences on you breaking the contract, like being one. I definitely do think it's interesting. Probably going to be more interesting in the beginning to try to uphold the contract. Which, for the sake of those out there, we can talk about what Kandra are. Kandra are the closest thing we'll probably get to a straight up like magical creature within this setting. They are essentially shapeshifters that take on the appearance of anyone, Scar, Noble, Keeper, by consuming their corpse and reassembling their bones within themselves, and then can take on the appearance of that individual, and can also are sort of perfect like spies, as they can have an ability to like replicate and the personalities of the people that take in through study. I think because I was in reading the books again and looking into it, they don't have the ability. It's not that they get the memories of the person that they take in.
They research their subject to like a fine point.
Yeah. So it's it is that is through study and practice that they are able to perfectly sort of what's the word that I'm trying to look for, portray, I guess,
portray.
their target. But they have to consume their corpse. However, they have this contract that all the Kandra sort of are forced to obey, or at least through social means, where they cannot kill a person. They're not assassins. They're more spies. They cannot kill a human. So
Why does that contract exist?
It's basically so people don't hunt them down.
yeah,
This is kind of like
And also slightly
vampire.
spoilers.
It's kind of
Yeah.
like vampire maintaining. Oh, okay.
So spoilers for the next 15 seconds, earmuffs that I don't want to, for anyone that doesn't want to know.
Don't look at the screen either because we have the text.
Yeah. And
Well,
Cover that part of the text.
we'll
Yeah,
just-
so spoilers
mumble
starting
it.
now. When the final empire was created, they had a contract with the Lord Ruler, where I believe there's even a stone or a metal engraving of this
Mhm.
contract, where there are certain principles that they have to uphold.
Yeah,
So.
he set that in order when he created them.
Else be eradicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
end of spoilers, and so we
Nice.
don't get too much into it because I know Savannah hasn't gotten there too much in the book. But it's not a
Interesting.
mega spoiler, but it is. If we're going to be talking about the contract, I did want to know kind of where that comes from because it is something that that your character would know.
It's like, hey y'all, here's some fruit of knowledge of good and evil. Don't eat it though.
Yeah.
Don't eat
Well,
it. Just saying. I'll be awful sore at you.
So for the purposes
Kind of define our
ZaKeer,
relationship forevermore.
I was thinking of attaching him to either of the nobles in the crew, because noble houses do have
Oh.
Contra spies at some point.
Yeah, a lot of them will contract Chondras through the payment of a valuable metal known as atium to Chondras to sort of as part of the contract.
Y'all rock paper scissors for it.
Yeah, who has I guess of both of you, my instinct as the narrator would say that it might make more sense for Sacha to have a Kandra servant, essentially, to have a Kandra's employee as somebody whose house was situated in Luthadel, had that power, and then lost it. Kandra very difficult to kill, so it would make sense that they would have survived this event.
Cool.
Whereas it might make less sense for Violette to as a smaller house who's growing up to have gained the services of a Kandra. But if either of you have different opinions on that,
Well, no, that works for me. I would bequeath Mouse to Violette, maybe one of your servants.
Yeah.
Plucking that from this storyline into her storyline.
yeah, because if Mouse wanted to be kind of involved with one of the noble houses, because that you might have come from, I guess, if Mouse might have been gained in the employ of this house as they have moved into Luthadel as somebody who knows the city, or came from outside the city, depending on whether you think Mouse has a knowledge of Luthadel and has the sort of street smarts.
Yeah. I like the bent of having Mouse having just as far as archetypes go, of you having the street level knowledge that it sounds like a lot some of us might not have.
Yeah.
If not all of us. I'm not sure how Kandra if they interact with street level stuff that much, but yeah.
They might.
Depends on
probably
what
just
they're asked to
depends.
do. Yeah. They do whatever their master commands them to, essentially, to the letter. So whatever they're told to do.
Cool. I'm not super keen on having with RJ's character having a master servant dynamic.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be
cool.
if you want to have more of a casual relationship between the two of you, because you don't have the ability to pay him any further. So it would make sense that maybe it's more of an alliance of
like maybe they have something both of us want, or maybe not the same thing, but we both.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll let him think.
Yeah,
about that.
you and RJ can figure that out too.
Cool.
So yeah, is that kind of the dynamic we want to go with, where Sacha and ZaKeer are connected, and then oh my god, I can't remember how you say
It's like
Violet
it's
and
by its spell.
Violette.
Violette. Like a viol.
Violette.
Violet.
Okay.
Like a
That makes
viola.
sense.
Viola.
Yeah, Violette.
Like the instrument.
That so Violette and the
Sorry, I
artist
keep
formerly
doing
known
this
as
to you.
Mouse. At least I think everyone has a different letter for their name in this group.
Yeah.
So none of these names sound the same so far. So that's good.
I think
French just isn't my strong suit.
Oh, we'll find some way to fuck you over. Don't worry about it.
Okay, thank you. Does Hadzel have Sasha? Does Sasha have a family name? What their?
I'm sure. maybe I'm
Insert
not
house name here.
Maybe I'm not allowed to use it anymore because we got crushed, and
Yeah,
not
that's also
because I
true,
haven't
but-
thought of it.
That's fine too.
Maybe I'm trying to get my last name,
Okay.
Just last name back.
like some sort of Rumpelstiltskin situation. I don't know. That's not the story of that. But names are a big deal.
So I would like to maybe flesh out between, mostly with Mouse, but also between Mouse and Violette. So you're working for the family, but what would your characters like more motivations for getting involved in the more criminal aspects? Like, what's the relationship like between the two of you? How did you get involved with the crew here?
Yeah, so when we had like originally been talking, I was sort of looking at like before joining the crew, Mouse was sort of like a smuggler. And could like is like familiar with the city, like knows how to speak the word street talk. And so it could just be like in sort of like going back and forth and like smuggling things, like somehow got connected with Violette's family because they're coming into the city, and like you were saying earlier, that they needed somebody who potentially had like knows the city well.
So almost you were hired as like an informant by House Laurent, and your skills have been utilized by the family. Are they all aware? Because obviously, for the sake of this game, Violette would be aware that you're a misting. Would that be would that be something that House Laurent learned and has been utilizing as part of their? Or is that a secret between the two of you?
I don't know.
Savannah, do you have any insight or any suggestions?
Yeah, any thoughts?
I mean, I think it's fun.
I'm kind of
if it's a
like both
secret.
of them. Yeah. Yeah.
Because with Violette being a Mistborn, would be able to, unless you are a smoker, would be able to
tell.
detect.
Yeah,
that
you
you're
would
a
know
misting.
when I was doing it.
Smokers
Ooh,
being
yeah, I
one
like
of
it being a
the-
I know
secret.
when you said like there said like lurkers and smokers. I'm like, this left or dead.
Surprise! It's a
Yeah.
zombie game.
Yeah.
Oh,
Smokers
jeez.
have the ability
Well-
to burn bronze, I believe, or brass.
Copper? No.
Hang on.
No,
hang on.
yeah, because it's a
I
copper.
just had it
cloud.
up. I was
Yeah,
just
copper
looking
cloud.
at
They
it. Okay,
burn-
copper. Yeah.
They burn copper to obfuscate allomantic pulses from people who can burn the other one, which I can't remember if it's bronze or
Bronze.
bronze, that can detect allomantic use.
Yeah, like through the thing. Yeah. So
It's I love the allomantic system, the magic system of this game, but God, now that I'm having to talk about it, it's hard to remember all these things.
Yeah,
I'm reading
make
the
us
book, I'm
in
like,
this and this. We need that.
that'll-
Is this
Yeah.
is this common knowledge?
yes, this would be common knowledge.
Among
Yeah,
the
especially
nobility, certainly.
yeah, The noble would know most things about Allomancy. Ska,
I will
not
get a
so
print
much.
out there.
Yeah,
We should
Ska
make a
look at
list.
Allomancy
So
as
you
the
look
sort
like
of,
a 10-eye.
Yeah.
But we can talk about that. So Ska would see Allomancy as like this magical power the nobility have, and they don't really understand how it works because it is kept as a secret by the Steel Ministry, the religious faction of the Empire. Nobles are more educated in it, understand its usage. They keep it a secret. Most people
It's a
don't like.
smartphone.
Yeah, basically. But the nobles try to keep it as much of a secret as possible, but there are a lot of rumors and stuff that go around that have of like who's an Allomancer and who's not. Okay, I like that dynamic though, because you don't necessarily, I mean, you don't have to have some great motive for why you want to take down this specific house. As a Ska especially, it could just be, I fucking hate them because they're nobles, and most Ska just hate nobility. So
Ooh, okay. Yeah, like this. And yeah, so it is so it is more of a secret than her powers, but
I like the
feel
idea that they're
yes.
like secret friends, but then like
Mhm.
during the day have to be like, no, you work for me. They're like secret friends.
I like it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I know you aren't quite sold on whether you're going to be a Tenai yet or not, if that's what you're going to go
Yeah,
with.
I just remember like RJ saying some stuff that like seemed like him having abilities and stuff that overlapped with Tenai a lot, and I was like, well, maybe I need to like pick something
Yeah.
else. But
We
he's
could
not
ask
here to
RJ.
talk about
Yeah.
that. I just remember him talking about like scouting and like
Yeah,
that
'cause,
felt
I mean-
like more of a like a Tenai thing
Yeah.
job.
Because that
will
would-
eat animals and turn into animals for scouting and spying.
Yeah, so he would have some capabilities to scout and spy because of his shape shifting, whereas you, as a Tenai, your abilities mostly come through your heightened senses. So I can see the overlap, and if you want to sort of separate yourself from being like a spy type character, because we have someone that could kind of fit that mold. I understand that. So, but yeah, I'm gonna have you marked out. So what I put in my notes here is that Mouse is employed by House Laurent as an informant, essentially. And you don't have to be a Tenai for that. Tenais work well as informants because they can overhear things that they otherwise couldn't. But even just being a Ska, like in the city, knowing how to like camouflage it, like to blend in, you could learn things. So that sort of label works either way.
Okay.
Let me ask, so since Archer's back, does the Khandra have any abilities like, because we were talking about the overlap between like a Mouse trying to be a Tenai sort of spy and your abilities as a Khandra. Most of your abilities when you were talking about being like a spy, RJ, were coming from your ability to shapeshift. There are no like specific Khandra abilities that give you...
So Contra themselves are impersonators. They are more social spies, whereas I figure Tenais are more, I'm going to sit on this rooftop, activate my Tenai abilities, I'm going to just listen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to make sure with that is it's not, they didn't have any special powers in this game that I wasn't aware
Specifically
of.
geared towards that.
From what I
Yeah.
saw in their stunts, they're more geared towards changing their body to help suit the crew's needs.
Okay, that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah.
So,
All right,
yeah.
then maybe I will stick with Tenai then.
Yeah, whichever way you want to go. I mean, information can be key here, which kind of gets us into our second, because I think we've talked about like all of your motivations and kind of what's your common cause enough. Because the second question is, well, who's your crew's primary target? We have that one down too. It's going to be House Alariel. We've talked a little bit about why your reasons for getting involved here. I guess with Violette, with targeting this house specifically, do you envision it more like House Laurent is like has something against House Alariel, or is it more that you got involved with this crew who, because of a couple people trying to target this house, you thought, hey, this might be a good opportunity for me to get in on?
Yeah, I think it was that.
Okay. You wanted to take down one of the noble houses. It didn't really matter which one
Didn't
to you
matter which one.
specifically, but you want to take down a noble house. Okay. Gotcha. So that works. So the third question, which I think gets a little bit more into it, that more discussion with all of you, is what is your crew's preferred method? The prompt in the book, with your crew's target in mind, think about how you prefer to operate. Do you tend to wage open warfare, use deception? Do your methods focus on theft, sabotage, diplomacy, confidence schemes, or do you employ a varied approach? Your crew's method can help everyone tailor their character's skills and specialties, and also illuminate how they can best coordinate concepts and character choices. So we have a couple of information gatherers in the group through social and through more magical means. And then we also have 2 nobles that are able to infiltrate high society. And then also a keeper who also would have the ability to kind of blend in amongst the nobility too. So your crew has leanings, which would make it much easier to kind of work within society. But I also want to know from you all, like, what you want to see in gameplay. How do you want this to play out? Like, what do you want your methods of accomplishing this goal to look like? Because this could be a totally, like, we could have very little combat in this game, and it could be mostly focused on social interactions, infiltration, information gathering, diplomacy, and blackmailing, instead of just like, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna fight this house. If anything, that's probably the least interesting route to go as your default method. So anybody have any thoughts on that?
Is chaos an option?
You're
Chaos
here,
is
aren't you?
always an option. Yeah.
I mean, this crew, we, you know, I think chaos is probably within our wheelhouse. And I mean, for me, I kind of just want to hit the tropes. You know what I mean? Like, I would love to have at least one masquerade. A minimum of one
nobility
masquerade.
balls every week.
Like,
That's all they do.
Like, I don't
That's
necessarily.
literally.
Like, I don't necessarily need that every single session, but like just one, at least one, minimum of one. And then I would also like to, you know, bring chaos to like a secret cache of their junk at a warehouse and burn the thing to the ground or steal it all, and like, you know, and do things like that around the city, like to brush with a criminal underground, and like kind of like the major hits. I would like to hit all of those. I there's not like one specific, like, I think I would get, if we were burning everything down every single episode, that might get a little bit tedious for me, at the same way that like having double and triple speak every time that I'm like with an NPC would also get tiring if it's every time. So that's my thoughts.
So more of a varied approach, having your master plan here involve different elements that might be more tailored to your crew's specialties and stuff, which works for the premise of taking down like a great house. I mean, their motivations and their capacity is going to be dictated by a lot of their like influences. Like, do they handle, you know, their finances, their like holdings within the city, who their allies are, things like that. Target and you know, this kind of gets into like some of the same things they did in the book, where it's like having that varied approach, trying to take them down and weaken them through a variety of different methods, will probably be very suitable for the task that you are trying to accomplish. So I definitely like that. And the one thing I wanted to lean into is that I think, with the exception of one, maybe two of you, it's not a very like combat heavy group, and it's not a very combat heavy game. So I don't want to be forcing people into situations where they have to fight. This isn't like D&D, or it's going to be the party sticks together, they go into a place, a bunch of guards show up, and they fight the guards to get to the treasure or something. It's not really going to be like that. Most of you are going to be kind of operating in small groups or independently to accomplish certain tasks and stuff. So, anybody else have any thoughts on that? Things that they want to see? I put a wish list here as well, like, which we can get into. jobs and things that you want to see come up in game, definitely feel free to spout those out.
I want to hit a river barge at some point.
Very.
Canals are kind of the main method of transportation, certainly for cargo in the Final
Oh,
Empire.
yes, let's go too slow, too slurious. I don't know.
And with all the ash in the water,
It's gross.
there's like one line that says the ash dissolves in the water.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is why they're not just completely covered in ash, because they dump it in the rivers and it washes it away.
But I feel I vaguely remember a bit where they talked about like keeps like having to clean out the canals though. Or is
That
that
might
for
be-
cleaning as something else?
That might be one of the later ones where the ash mounts are getting almost constant.
That sounds familiar. Yes. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I'll add that to my list: the attacking or raiding a canal transport. I also wanted to talk a little bit about one of the things that I want to make sure I bring into the game, which is the
Mhm.
Steel Ministry, because that's one of my favorite aspects of
Yeah.
the series.
if-
So,
If Steel Minister was on the table, I would be so on that.
or an
Oh,
Inquisitor, yeah, if you
jeez.
want to be an Inquisitor.
No.
So the Steel Ministry, for those watching or those here in the call that don't know as much about it, is the religious authority of the Final Empire that serves directly like the needs of the Lord Ruler. They're divided into 4 cantons: the Canton of Inquisition, Orthodoxy, Resource, and Finance. So the cantons of Orthodoxy, Resource, and Finance handle organizational, taxing, and like banking tasks and things like that. It's mostly like bureaucracy. The Canton of Inquisition is like the policing force, and they are the members of this canton are called Steel Minister or Steel Inquisitors, and they are sort of inhuman, they're allomancers for all intents and purposes. They have supernatural powers, and they are terrifying. They have these metal spikes that are driven straight through their skulls, and they exhibit powers they exhibit all elementic abilities. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm super. I mean, just point me at a thing and I'll burn it down.
Yeah. I mean, they're basically they are the judge. They are all. It's a group of judge dreads. Essentially, they are just.
That's pretty dope. I like that.
Yeah.
Specifically, Dread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they're terrifying. You don't want to fight them. They're nigh
They want to
immortal.
fight you though.
Yeah.
And they're one of their biggest tasks is they hunt down like mistings, and they'll hunt down like sky allomancers.
So
and stuff,
that's
too.
why you would want to keep that a secret. I was going to ask why you would want to keep it a secret if there was a, but yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah, no, the nobility is no problem. They can have allomantic powers. It's not like they don't need to keep it a secret, other than like playing their cards close to their chest. Whereas a ska misting means, or a ska mistborn is like heresy, because you're one of the things that we're not going to get into this game talking about like lines and veils is nobility and their sexual relations with ska. There is a lot of sexual assault and rape within the that is hinted at within the series. That is what leads to the ska Mistborn, because any noble that has sex with a ska is to kill them. So they're the Steel Ministry tells them they're supposed to kill them afterwards to prevent this sort of thing from happening. I don't want to get into that. We're not going to get into that in game, but it is something that sort of exists in the periphery as to how ska mistings are kind of come to be. So I I do want to get into the Steel Ministry being a presence, both from like the political and the bureaucratic aspects of it, and also with the Steel Ministers because they're fucking cool and terrifying, and they're a great threat to have sort of persisting in the background of this game.
Yeah, I did want to like. I'm like, I want them to be there.
Are they
but I'm also
like,
terrified.
as far as like our reaction to them, are they like the agents in the Matrix, where like as soon as you see one, you just you fucking run because you're not gonna take? Okay, all right, got it. It's
handled the exact same way in the books. It's like you see one, you run from them.
Okay, got it.
Like you run, you find a smoker, you hide.
Got it.
Like trying to stay as far away from the steel from the Inquisitors as possible.
In the novel,
I mean, but they're not a danger to like the nobility, though.
No.
Like,
not typically, unless you're doing something that would be heretical to the Steel Ministry's teachings,
which I intend to. So
just for frame of reference, Ryan, a Mistborn is worth like 10 to 15 Allomancers, but then the Steel Ministry is like what 2-3 Mistborn. Take one down.
Yeah, even a full Mistborn would want to run away from a Steel Inquisitor.
Yeah,
right on. Cool.
So
that's just gonna be there.
Yeah.
On my wish list, infiltrate a noble party where we have to coach a mouse through it.
Oh, jeez. Okay. How to be a noble lady.
I definitely have attending balls at the top of my list because I think that's where a lot of the political intrigue is going to take place.
Exactly. Party every night.
Yeah. And right now, everyone does have a reason why they could be there, except for Mouse. So definitely the disguising her as a noble lady to get her in.
We do need a She's All That episode for sure.
Okay. Wonderful. Anyone else have anything that they want to contribute to your crew's methods and how you get involved here?
Oh, yeah, we're talking about methods. It's nothing new. Like I like the idea of like working with rival houses and working with other criminal organizations or against them, depending on what is most valuable. Like, so that's cool to me.
Yeah, I'm putting enemy of my enemy in my wish list.
Yeah.
Lots of very tenuous alliances with people that you don't really want to be friends with.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out if that's where Hadzel comes into play, whether he's, maybe he was a terrace steward for Sacha's house or is one for Violette. Maybe is like Violette's personal terrace person, or that idea I had of like another house somehow catches wind of the plan and is like, hey, go help them do that because I'm also going to benefit from this.
So I like this for a couple reasons because it also kind of comes into like how the crew came together. Because if you we get a third house involved, and then we figure out how these three houses kind of end up together. No Fire Emblem relation. Or if you are a steward of one of either Sacha's former house or Violette's current house, how the relationship between those two houses, because I think that would be sort of paramount to how this crew initially came to be then. Whether there were dealings or some sort of prior relationship between Sacha's family and Violette's family, and that's how this whole thing got started. So I guess first of all, Alex, is there a way that you're leaning or what you're more interested in, like bringing in a third unrelated house at this point, or integrating yourself into one of these existing two noble houses?
That's a tough call because I'm also, this is related, trying to figure out who here would know that Hadzel is a keeper and not just a terrace steward. And I mean, of any of them, I would almost guess that ZaKeer is the one who's like, hey, you're a keeper. I know what you are, because you're also, this weird other thing. But it's also, how long is it going to be interesting for that to be secret knowledge from the characters? Because we all know going into it.
But
Yeah.
if I was a bastard about my contract, I don't have to report to everything to Master Sacha, just the things he asks me to report on.
That is entirely true. Is that like your relationship with Sacha is going to determine the nature of your contract too? Is that either you have like a friendly relationship and the two of you are buddy pals, and you can decide what you tell and what you keep. And on the flip side, you could be where you are beholden to him because of this tenuous contract. I think Ryan expressed, I don't know if you were still here, not wanting to have like that master servant relationship so much between the two of you. Ryan didn't want to necessarily play into that, so we could go more along the lines of like, the money's dried up, he no longer has access to ATM, so it's going to be harder for him to pay you going forward. So your contract is a little flimsier than it was before, so maybe you're pushing the boundaries of that and you have more autonomy here, but you're still any like direct
Contracts with him.
Yeah, you still have a contract that they need to uphold with his family, but you can push the boundaries of it, and then that can develop into more of like of an alliance and a friendship between the two of you as the game goes on. So
I think RJ and I do well being slight, like a tinge of contention. I think we do that pretty well. So
yeah,
that'll be good, I think.
So leading into the question that Alex was trying to decide of whether to be how to be involved with the current group, does anyone else like opening the floor to the other players? Does anyone have any suggestions or thoughts on the subject?
I mean, I think it's more interesting if you're tied to one of us instead of trying to bring in a third house, but that's just me for the sake of like party bonds and stuff.
Yeah.
I think
Also simplicity
to that
of
point,
storytelling.
Yeah.
I think there should be a tie somewhere. I don't know that the house is the only way to do it.
Had been employed by Sacha's house, but got sold off to House Laurent as part of like recouping losses, and
Why don't both?
and like not gonna sell the Conjured contract because that's much more valuable. But
Alex can have his cake and eat it.
The tie between.
Yeah, that could be the binding tie between your two houses, and why you ended up getting involved together.
Okay. I'm a little bit confused with how contracts are working, but I don't want to bog us down at the moment.
Yeah, so the keepers are more seen as are more like property, where they are sold between the houses. They are all the keepers and the ska are technically owned by the Lord Ruler, and then through the Steel Ministry, they are essentially like leased out to the noble houses. So if you had a terrace steward under your, or a ska workforce under your immediate employ, you could have negotiated with another house to give over your stewards or your workforce to try to recoup some of your losses in like the late days before your house was completely taken down.
Okay.
And just, I think one brief point of clarification, because we've kind of been using Keeper and Terrace interchangeably for a lot of this. Terrace is like the group, the racial subgroup as a whole that has been, bred into this servant class. And Keepers are the secret organization within the Terrace who have the ferrochemical powers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you would have known him as Alex's character as a terrace steward, is how they are seen publicly, as they're stewards that are in the employ of the nobility. The keeper aspect of it is more of his secret powers.
Gotcha. In my baby brain, I'm just like picturing the keepers in Mass Effect, just like they're there, they're doing work. I don't really know what they're doing, but hey, I'm glad they're there.
Fair, yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
they also oversee like a lot of like contracts between like nobility,
I
like
think those are
it
the
kind of
obligators.
obligators. Oh, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, the obligators are the members of the steel, or that's the term used for members of the steel ministry
Okay.
that
I'm
aren't
just trying to
steel
figure out which
inquisitors.
character in Left 4 Dead the obligator is, but
That's what you would refer to like a minister,
like a lawyer, right? Or
It'd be the jockeys.
they're
Son
they're
of
more
a-
like
I
if
God, they were connected. to
they're more like
ministry.
religious hate. They're like priests,
Yeah.
essentially. But if priests were bureaucrats, which isn't
well,
isn't too far off if you get
Yeah.
into the history of Catholicism. But
Yeah.
if it's like they're bureaucratic priests, they oversee contracts within like between the nobility, and like and any like agreements. If you're like at a ball and you're trying to make some sort of deal with a with another member of a house or something, they'll call over an obligator who's attending the ball, and they will witness the event. And
Yeah,
record
that's
it.
what I
is that
was remembering
because-
happening.
Is that because they are seen as impartial, or is that because the Dark Lord, what the Lord Emperor
Lord
wants to have
Ruler.
eyes on every Lord Ruler wants to have eyes on every contract?
Both?
Both. Yeah, they're supposed to be impartial.
But
They're
You can
not.
bribe them.
But they're religious,
very-
so
they're corrupt. They take bribes, things like
okay,
that.
all right.
Not gonna
they-
say the joke I was gonna say.
Okay.
You'll have to
Arch is
subscribe
censoring
to our
himself,
Discord channel to see that joke,
Discord's free.
and the art channel.
Yeah.
Assuming it's art.
So is this what we're gonna go with that? So I want to set a little bit of a timeline here to try to figure out how this works. So your house, Sasha's house, has recently fallen. We're talking like probably within the last few months to a year or something like that. Is that what we're going with?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, either that can, I'm trying to think of like what kind of kicks things in motion. It's maybe either that or Violette's family just comes to town. Is
Yeah.
like one of those
Well, what
two
I was
things
thinking-
would work well for kind of everything kicking starting. Or
I was assuming based on the timeline here is House Laurent came to Luthadel during the last days of Sasha's yet to be named house. Came to Luthadel during that time when they were on the down, where they're kind of on the downward trend. They're trying to sell off some stuff to recoup their losses. So they end up making this deal with House Laurent, who needs to acquire goods and assets to maintain their place in their hold in Luthadel.
gotcha.
so I have all
So,
of
yeah.
your shit now.
Yeah, so I guess that would be a funny thing.
Also,
That'd be a funny little gag to call back to. It's like, like just no anything. Never mind. It's like, okay. So this kind of, was there? You kind of described a death by 1,000 cuts sort of end of my house. Was there like a final blow at any point?
Yeah, I think once they had like began to sell off their assets, probably the plan from whoever the head of your house would have been at that point is, we need to get out of the city. We're going to sell off everything we can and try to get out. Probably at that point when they were most vulnerable, they were actually attacked by the house, by House L'Ariel sends their assassins or whatever to ambush the house, and that's where most of your family would have been killed off.
Gotcha. So who's living in my old house now? Is it like second cousins of Valerial, or is it like, or did they upgrade into it? I mean, I assume not, because we've been, again, death by 1,000 cuts, I'm sure.
Yeah, it probably would have been whatever keep you had within the city would probably have been given, probably would have purchased or something by one of the other houses, probably House of L'Ariel, and then would have been sold to one of their like allied houses.
Well,
So there's probably an unrelated house who is strongly tied with House of L'Ariel.
Then I'll put in the wish bucket one of the sessions of being breaking into that particular my old house where
Ooh.
there's where I know like secret passages and stuff, or I don't know. I think that'd be fun.
To
for
get
one
the
session.
secret stash of adium.
Wait, is that? Oh, that's the thing.
Adium is kind of the premium currency in the empire.
So it's like a lyrium. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's a
Like
metal.
Bitcoin?
It's
It's
the
a
Oh, yeah,
very
see.
it's a very rare metal that is extremely valuable.
Gotcha.
That also has the other effect that if a Mistborn burns it, if they consume and burn it, that it allows them some like form of like precognition, where they can see events as they're like. So if they're like in combat or something, like they can see events like immediately as they're.
I mean, that
like,
would be
before they're
fun.
happening.
Just like going there because I know there's some there, or I think there might be some still there, assuming it hasn't been pilfered, and then we go there to collect
Do a
that
heist
thing.
at your old house.
Oh, heist the whole house, yeah. Old house heist. Like, cool.
Okay, I'm trying to make notes of all of this, so I will not remember. If y'all want to talk about anything else, you can vamp for a second while I'm writing this down. Or we can take a break.
As a meme, I was just gonna let it be quiet for the next 3
Yeah, I
minutes.
know you were. Well, we can also
Silent.
we could take our break here while I'm unless there's anything else anybody wanted to add here. But as far as we're doing like the relationships, kind of ties that bind here. Just confirming, House Laurent moves to Luthadel in the last days of Sacha's house. Hadzel is sold to House Laurent as part of the process and all the business dealings that are going on at this point. Sacha's house falls. You're exiled on the outs, living somewhere right now to be determined, seeking shelter somewhere. And it's at this point, with some of the knowledge that probably Hadzel has about House or Sacha's house, that when this plan from House Laurent comes to fruition of we need to take out one of these great houses, is kind of what begins to pull everyone together for this scheme. So,
Oh, I know a guy who hates them.
yeah,
Yeah.
that works. I like it. So that does tie us a little more directly with like a noble house as being sort of the orchestrators of this event. So we'll probably at some point we'll have to like flesh out more of House Laurent and what they look like, because they would be more of like the benefactors for this job. So that'll be an interesting relationship there.
This does make me think of another item for the wish list, that we run afoul or into another ska thieving crew that's maybe also trying to hit House Ilarial, because we're
Okay.
kind of, in the books, most of the underground is ska thieving crews, and
Yeah.
by and large, we are a noble thieving crew attempting to do something, and just be
Just like, wait a minute.
I
we're
do like.
the amateurs, the posers here.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of us having like rivals, not necessarily like murderous rivals, but just like stop stealing the things that we wanted to steal, or like having just
Yeah.
like people that were
They got
annoyed
to it
because they got
first.
to it first before
Yeah.
us.
Okay.
Like I kind of more not friendly rivalry, but not murderous, if that makes sense.
Okay, sort of like an Ocean's 12 situation.
I think
Hmm.
so.
These are references that very few people, I think, will
I
relate
think
to.
so.
It's the one with there's the other thief that keeps stealing everything before they're trying to steal it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Then yes.
anyway, with that, let's go and take our break here while I kind of consolidate all this into my notes. We'll come back. We're going to talk a little bit about your characters, go through some of those prompts that we've already answered so we can talk about for the chat, and also make sure everything still lines up with where we're at right now. And then we'll see where we are with time after that, and anything else we want to talk about. So thank you everyone out there for watching and engaging in the chat. This is all going super well, and this is going to be very fun. We already have so many ideas going on. We will see you all back here in a few minutes, so take a break and we will see you soon. Welcome back, Internet. We are rested and ready to get back to talking about our characters, which is what we're going to do here first in the second half of our session 0. I'm getting this pulled up here. So we've come up with our crew and all that. This part should go pretty quick because I think most of you have already decided on some stuff, but we can also sort of expand on that. And if there's anything y'all want to change, you're welcome to. So we're just going to follow the same steps we did before. So we've already answered the questions about starting with our crew. Step 2 is to devise a concept. So I think what I'm going to do is we'll just go around in a circle and talk about like which concept, like what y'all have already picked, or if you were thinking of changing what you want to change to. So in the book, the character concept should be short and sweet, just a few words that sort of describe the like high concept of your character, kind of like Fate. So we'll just go in the same order that we had in the chat, or had on the screen. I think Savannah was first.
Yeah.
What's your concept?
So for Violette, my concept is ambitious but yet unknown noblewoman.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm getting the thing because I don't remember who was next.
Ryan.
I
can call on people. I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I think Noble down on his luck.
I think that still fits pretty well. I have it up now. Alex or Hadzel.
Hadzel is
Hadzel's so hot right now.
Yeah. Always. He is a rebellious keeper, because I've kind of alluded that keepers are very secretive. He is still secretive, but is a bit more like, okay, I have these powers, I can and should use them.
All right. RJ?
I'm looking at thesaurus.com, but I think I'm going to go with Vexed Conjure Spy.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm playing
And Morgan, yeah.
a ska misting. Sort of an informant.
Okay. All right. So the second part, we do would have been the questions that we did before. We kind of talked about this too already. So the first part is why you joined the crew, and this goes in your drive category. So my question then is what everyone picked for their drive. Violette?
To become the greatest of the noble houses.
Okay.
Big dreams.
Sacha?
I'll say to reclaim what was taken.
All right. Hadzel?
I mean, this is kind of what I was still figuring out with the first question I posed, but I think the idea of there's something that Hassel Ariel has that I would like to get in the course of this thieving job.
Okay.
So acquiring knowledge.
Okay. Yeah. I like it. Have to keep looking at that because I'm going to remember the names eventually. ZaKeer?
Fulfill their contract and return to the homeland.
Okay. And Mouse?
Just realizing I didn't really figure it out.
What are you thinking? We can
well,
brainstorm it.
Yeah, because we had sort of like she kind of works for Violetta's house. It's a good drive.
Yeah, because we talked about you've joined because you were employed by them, so you're, you know, I don't know if you're monetarily driven or if there's some sort of kind of secret motivation to all of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I kind of posed it earlier, but maybe it is like sort of like revenge. I don't know what specifically, but has like a little bit of skin in it against this bigger house, maybe
Yeah.
I'm also saying like part of the reason like she snapped is because of this house. I don't know what that is yet, but something in relation to this house that we're bringing down, like maybe.
There are a couple of like suggestions that are on there that kind of go with like revenge, because there's like avenge my family, rescue a sibling, expose the nobility as frauds. Do you think it's more so you think it's more personal, like this house did something
maybe
to you specifically, or it's just like a hatred for the nobility in general?
Yeah, maybe it's something along like avenging like her family, because like she's got some noble blood, so maybe like her parents got killed or whatever. I mean,
got killed by a noble or like the Steel Ministry.
Yeah. So like wants a little bit of revenge on that, maybe. Okay.
I like it.
I feel like I've almost got something. It's percolating.
Okay.
Like it's a little bit of revenge.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Sprinkling of revenge.
As a treat.
As a treat. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, you can flesh that out more if you want, but revenge is kind of the general, and thinking about like the specifics of it as you go.
Yeah,
that is fine. All right. The next part is, how did you live before you joined the crew? This goes into your profession trait. Back to Violette.
Violette is a dilettante.
Okay.
So her family were patrons of some art or something.
Okay.
But she doesn't really know anything about it.
Okay.
But she's trying.
I should mention too. So the way these traits work is a lot like so the stuff that you guys are putting down here. It's kind of like Fate, where if you are trying to when you're doing a contest, when you're rolling, and one of these traits applies, you get to add an additional dice to your pool when you're rolling. So these sort of things are going to be aspects that you will be pulling from during the game to give yourself an advantage. I don't think I'd mentioned that previously, but that's where the stuff kind of comes in gameplay. Sorry, Sacha.
Not really sure what profession I have for being
rich.
Yeah, it's a rich profession.
You could say like what business your house was in specifically, because like a lot of the great houses have monopolies or near monopolies on a certain kind of trade.
Yeah,
sure.
I know you had previously also talked about if your character being some sort of like duelist.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah. Is that a profession? Like, or I mean, like, can my profession just be like easily aggrieved?
Well, because I was looking at it.
Angry and rich.
Yeah. Can I be one of those angry rich people?
Sorry, I was looking over the list here to see if whether, because did you have dual? I feel like you had. Oh yeah, because what special skill did you bring to the crew? Okay. I think you picked duelist for that one. Yeah, so I don't know if.
We can swing it back around, but
yeah, I just look over that list and yeah, look at the list and see if there's anything that kind of like speaks out, because there's 86. This also kind of answers the question of like, what has Sacha been doing since their family fell to like survive? Is another kind of question this can answer. We'll go with Hadzel.
Pretty obvious. Terrace steward.
Okay.
Oh, I forgot Playboy was the one I picked. I think that is a profession.
Now, does that make it the same answer as your first? Because your concept, your concept was rebellious.
My concept
terrorist.
is rebellious keeper.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
Terrace steward. That makes sense. Okay, yeah. Then you can put that there. That works. And ZaKeer.
I was either going to do spy or servant. Or steward, that's the word.
Yeah, because you already have... let's see. Well, I guess now I'm looking at your concept... I don't know if your concept actually goes into, like, is the same as an... works as a trait. I don't know if your concept actually adds to your roles, so I think... Because I was saying that for you, Alex, and I was realizing I don't know if the overlap would be a problem. Sorry, I'm trying to pull something up here. Forming a dice pool. Yeah, so yeah, it can be if your concept and any of these overlap, it's fine because you'd be pulling from these for your you don't pull from your concept for additional dice for your pools. So yeah, whatever you want to do. So which one do you want to go with?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with spy then.
Spy, okay. And mouse.
Yeah, so we had originally talked about like smuggler, but then kind of decide more on like informant is kind of more
Okay.
to go along with
Okay.
like the tin eye abilities and stuff.
Yeah, I think that works nicely. Cool. So informant. Ryan, do you have any thoughts looking at the list?
Yes, I forgot. I did decide last time we were looking at it. And Playboy.
Playboy. Okay. That works. Let's see. What special skill do you bring to the crew? That's the next one. Violette, what'd you pick?
I picked underestimated infiltrator because I don't think people take her seriously, and I think she finds that to be a skill.
Okay.
I think she lets people underestimate her.
That works.
Duelist.
Duelist for Sacha. Hadzel.
So originally I had said kind of similar in a bit to Violette, but unassuming servant. But I'm wondering if that's too close to Terra Steward because that's almost kind of implicit in that.
That's kind of anybody would imply that from I think being a Terra Steward.
Yeah,
So if you want to
so
pick
then,
something
I mean,
different,
here, because we were just saying the concept doesn't lend to things, but also, is it too on the nose to just be like, yeah, I'm a keeper, I have ferrochemy? Is that, because then it would...
that's going to be difficult because when you're like if you're using your ferrochemical abilities, that isn't going to add to it because
Right.
you need to be a ferrochemist to be a ferrochemist.
Okay. So actually, this is something that I had also been considering because pretty much every keeper has some kind of specialty in terms of like the knowledge that they themselves keep. But I haven't
Yeah.
figured out what Hadzel's is yet.
Your specialty could be a good thing to put here. Is like you are because like Imperial Historian is an option here. You could
Right.
put like something like religious historian or whatever kind of like
Yeah.
specialty knowledge you want to have.
Right. So yeah, that's something that I was considering if people have ideas or suggestions, because the overlap between what Alex can be a specialist expert in and what makes sense for the game is fairly slim.
Because I think it's also fair to think about like, well, what is your crew trying to do here? What kind of historical knowledge would help with with this goal that you have?
People's lineages.
Yeah, I mean, you could be a what would the term for that be?
Genealogist.
Yeah. You could go with something like that. Even just like knowledge of like proper like procedures and stuff within like the courts and within the houses might come into handy if you're
noble historian specifically.
Yeah, you could do like noble historian. Okay. ZaKeer.
I put down Hawk-Eyed Observer.
Okay. I think the one thing I will kind of put there is let's see what his mouse want to take, because Hawk-Eyed Observer also
Might go into
potentially
mouse.
overlap with the Tin Eye aspect of the, because that's kind of the Tin Eye's whole thing. So that is a good question. Is
Yeah.
like mouse, which were you going to go with it?
Okay, so like because I previously sort of like in trying to keep away from that because I had remembered that RJ had said that. I did put like can hide anything, but now I'm wondering if something more along the lines of like essentially like street smart, like it's like Savvy like knows like like if there's something like along those lines of like knowing the city and like knowing people, or like
Street Smart would work well, I think. For that.
Because
Especially since no one else in this group. Really
yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. I was like, no one, like everyone else is kind of.
That definitely puts you in a unique advantage there.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Unless someone's got a better way to say street smart. I'm just gonna think of John Mulaney saying
world leader. Street smarts.
Exactly. That's what I'm picturing.
Is Mouse gonna be what's it? Does she not like going to secondary locations? Okay.
No. Do not take her to a secondary location. Oh gosh. Yeah, I'm just gonna put street smart for now.
Yeah, that works. And so if ZaKeer, if you want to do Hawk-Eyed Observer, I think that also like it gives it like there's a slight bit of overlap, but I think there's different ways you can play that too.
Yeah, because it can also play into like social, like noticing like social cues and stuff.
Yeah.
That like mannerisms, like body language.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works. Okay.
It's not just like noticing there's a bird over there, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's me.
Okay, cool.
You're a bird.
A murder.
Yep.
So the next one is, what is your most distinctive feature? This goes into your feature trait. Violette?
Violette has a provincial accent.
Okay.
I don't
Sacha?
know. I don't know if I want to do the for a noble kind of like a big boy, strong boy, or the scarred face. I'm not sure
Either
which is
way.
the more distinct.
The
since I guess
scarred
we're
face. Yeah, I mean, because initially you picked that, and I mean that one is your, because you can still, it doesn't take away your scarred face if you have it with your character description and stuff. You could have either. There are ways you can play both, because the scarred face also helps with the like if you're trying to keep people from recognizing you.
Okay.
In some of these infiltrations, but I mean honestly, whatever you want to go with works. What was the other one you were looking at? You said something about.
Oh, it says brawny.
Brawny.
It's one of those things, and I don't know if that's what is, because I think most of that's kind of like hidden under that collar.
Yeah. There's also like sturdy build.
Sturdy build. Oh yeah, that one people say.
Dirty boy.
That's one sturdy build. And
but that also helps if you're like planning on kind of filling the archetype of like the muscle.
Yeah.
With the group.
I think so. We'll do that. Because I'm just gonna have like just a pretty big build, or tall. I don't know, not like massive, not like the Hulk or anything.
Yeah.
But you know, just
that's Hadzel when he's using his strength.
nice. Yeah. More of a kind of just big for normal. Big for normal. Not so big for abnormal.
All right.
Does that help everyone?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Hadzel, what do you got?
Yeah. So I know initially I had said, an unreadable expression, but I think actually based off a decision I made for the art, Hadzel is albino.
Okay. All right. What else is ZaKeer?
I put extremely talkative.
Okay. And Mouse.
Disheveled.
Shut. Okay.
Yeah. I really like that one. I still like it a lot.
Yeah. All right. The next one is, how do other people describe your personality? Violette.
Idealistic.
Okay. Sacha.
Intense.
Hadzel.
Again, last time I had put funny, and I can't think of a better one right now, though maybe that one will change.
I do like the
Or maybe witty
Ter-
is better.
either whichever one you want to go with. It's whether you want to put that onto yourself to play a funny character, because
Yeah.
that's something I don't want to put on myself ever.
Yeah.
If I'm funny, I'm unintentionally funny.
Yeah, no. Let's go with witty. Because
All right.
we all know I can't stop myself from doing that in games.
Boy.
ZaKeer.
I'm blunt.
Okay. And Mouse.
If you can't tell from the art, I'm nervous. I have a concern about everything.
Yes. Let's see.
It's so surprising
right.
with the company you keep.
So those are all of our traits, and like I said before, those traits will help you in game when you can invoke them for an extra bonus on your rolls when you're kind of creating your dice pools. So they'll give you an additional die if we determine that your trait is applicable to whatever it is you're trying to do. The next question, and we can just talk about this because I think we've already kind of established all this, is like, do you have any magical powers or special powers such as magic or shapeshifting? Is anybody's changing? Is everybody staying where they're at? I think the only person who's up in the air was Mouse but you think you're going to stay at 10 eye?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I know we've got Violette being a Mistborn. We have Hadzel as a Ferrochemist. We have ZaKeer as a Khandra. And then Mouse as a Misting, leaving our one powerless character as Sacha.
I don't like the term powerless, but okay. Okay.
So then we did our... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just would now be a good time for the audience to explain kind of what the powers are, or just wait for that to come up in play?
We could talk about it a little bit. Yeah, I don't want to because they are so in depth, it could be difficult to. I'm not going to go through all the medals, but basically, if you are, as far as the powers in this game, there is allomancy, which is the ability to consume I mean, everybody can. The ability is not to consume the metal, but if you have consumed sufficient quantities of a metal, one of the, I think at this point it's 8. That people know of that are part of the vernacular. They give you different powers that you can do. So if you burn steel or iron, a consumer burn steel and iron. What's the word that I'm looking like? Tinctures. Then you can push and pull metals by concentrating. Other metals give you the ability to influence people's emotions, to read or cloak allomantic pulses from detection, and what was the other subset?
Physical or senses.
To heighten your senses, or to increase your strength and physical endurance. So different people will have who have noble blood have these powers. Most are mistings, 1 in 100 nobles will be born a misting, which gives them 1 of the ability. They can consume and use 1 of the metals. And then 1 in 100 mistings are born as a Mistborn, which gives them the ability to utilize any of the allomantic metals. So exceedingly rare. And then for our other powers, we have ferrochemists or keepers, who instead of consuming a metal, they can wear different metals or be in contact with different metals, and they can store different physical and mental attributes within the metal. They can store like memories. They can store things like weight and age, and I was thinking of any of the others. Their sense of hearing and sense of sight. And essentially, while they are storing the metals in those in these vessels, then they have diminished their own abilities during that time. So they're kind of like storing excess of those traits. They can then tap those metal reserves to heighten their abilities. So they would go weak, being extremely weak or fragile, and then they could tap their strength reserve, and they become super bulking strong for a short period of time, in kind of correlation with how much they've stored up and how much they're drawing from it. So that would be the abilities that Hadzel would have. And then we have people like creatures like Khandra, who we've already talked about, have these shape-shifting abilities. So as the world exists at this time, those are the magical abilities, the special powers that we have access to. There are some others that may come up in play, that I won't necessarily spoil right now, because I don't think we need to go into them for the sake of people that don't want to be spoiled. Yeah, that's what we're working with. So the way that character creation worked from here, and I'll just talk about it for a bit and ask if anybody's changing anything, is we go through the next couple of questions where it asks, do you have any special powers? Are you especially fit, smart, or charismatic? Are you well off, or do you struggle to get by? And based on your answers with those, you have to answer each one with either strong, weak, or average. If you answer one with, you have to use one of those answers for each. If you have powers, then you have to pick strong for powers, and then you have to pick weak or average for your being fit, smart, or charismatic, and your, what's the other one?
You're
Are you well off, or do you struggle to get by for your standing? So what it kind of leaves us with is well balanced characters, hopefully, because everybody's only going to be able to be good at a limited number of things, or excel at a limited number of things. That's sort of the downside of like playing a Mistborn. You have to pick strong standing with the with your powers, so your attributes and your standing are going to be weaker. We don't necessarily need to go through the numbers of all of that. Everybody picked their stuff. I don't know how exciting it would be for the audience to go through all of the stats that were picked. So everybody is kind of like varied their choices. Some people have good social standing, which your standing goes into aspects like resources, influence, and spirit, which is kind of like your luck, your good fortune, things like that. Your attributes are your typical kind of RPG attributes: physique, charm, wits. So your physical attributes, your abilities to influence others, and then your intelligence. So did anybody change anything with those, or decide to do anything differently for theirs? I think the only persons that we didn't hear picked, or that the group doesn't know picked, was Savannah's. So I know, Savannah, you ended up with strong powers because you're a Mistborn. Which one did you go with average? Which one did you go with weak for? You don't remember?
What were the other two options?
Attributes and standing.
I think I did standing and then attributes.
Okay, so average standing
sense.
and then weak attributes.
That sounds like what I would have done.
Okay.
I didn't write that part down. I just wrote the stats down.
Yeah, that's fine. So when you picked, when everybody picked these things based on the level that they were at, they got a certain number of points to allocate into those pools. So somebody with higher attributes got more points, so they'll have a higher number of dice in their physique, charm, and wits pool. Somebody who picked higher in standing has more dice in their resources, influence, and spirit pool, which you can allocate however you want. There are just certain like minimums and maximums that you have to have. All right, and then based on those numbers, we determine your health, reputation, and willpower. Since nobody's changing anything, I think all that's the same. Savannah, did you get those calculated on your
Yes.
sheet? Okay, cool. So those determine your resilience is kind of your hit points for this game. Either your physical hit points and health, your reputation, so how much of a social beating you can take, and then willpower, your mental fortitude.
You can die of dishonor in this game.
Yeah. Essentially, the way it works is like when you reach 0 in any of those pools, then you're at like a deficit for so like you're gonna have a harder time doing it. Like if you hit 0 with your health, then you're down 2 dice in all of your pools for any checks that you're doing going forward. There are different effects for reputation and willpower, I believe, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. All right. And then the last couple of questions, I think it's the last 2, is you answer, what is the worst thing that ever happened to you? And this goes into the tragedy section of your character sheet. And then, what do you believe is your ultimate purpose? And this goes into the destiny section of your character sheet. These are more intrinsic. These you don't draw on for traits or anything. This is more like fleshing out your backstory. Does anybody have anything they want to share specifically? Did anybody actually write out their stuff yet?
I mean, I did.
Of course.
Yeah, I've just realized I have to recomputate some things because I did change a couple stuff, so I'm doing some math real quick.
That's fine.
Mostly just wondering for Hadzel if the worst thing that ever happened. I mean, I can probably come up with something other than it, but even just the whole trauma of being terrorists and all that, all that crap.
Yeah. I think making it more personal or like coming up with something else that like came from that or like a specific event growing up as a terroristman might be good, but I mean that's pretty traumatic in and of itself.
Yeah.
Let's see. And again, with the destiny part, this is more kind of like written from your character's perspective. It's what they believe they're supposed to do. You don't need to sit down and say that exactly how your character's story is going to turn out. This is just what they aspire to.
So I think for tragedy, like obviously the house falling, but I kind of like the idea of like for the last time, maybe it's maybe the way that the house got in is like kind of my fault because I opened up a door and like allowed them in, and because what RJ, what's your character type again? This is like ZaKeer.
ZaKeer is their name.
Okay.
Or you're talking about Chandra?
Chandra, yeah. So maybe a Chandra is wearing the face of one of my lovers that I let in and then blasted me in the face with an acid coin shot and then killed all my family.
Oh yeah.
Something like that.
I forgot about the acid.
But it's like my fault.
Forgot about the acid. Yeah.
I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Anyway, something like that.
I had assumed that would probably be your tragedy. That's got to be the worst thing that's ever happened to you.
Yeah.
So far.
Let's
change up the music. Okay. Anybody else have anything they wanted to work through?
I'm trying to remember if this is too similar to a plot line in the books, but that maybe Hadzel wanted to have his own family at some point, but because of the way the terrorists are maintained, he has been castrated like all other male terroristmen, and so is unable to, have his own family in that way.
Yeah. So it's more of like, I guess it'd be more of like the tragedy being the realization that something that they have wanted can't come to pass.
Yeah.
Yeah. That works too. I like that.
So I built my Contra to be fairly autonomous. And for his tragedy, I was thinking he witnessed the killing of another Kandra and was totally put off by that. He does not want to do that to any other Kandra or have that happen to him.
Okay, so like executed by the Kandra.
Like,
not just like
not like the actual, like, they starve him out. He watched another Kandra eat another Kandra.
Okay.
Is that a mitochondria?
Mitochondria.
Boo.
Do you want me to change witty now?
No, I love it. Yeah, and that's a really, I think that's a good motivation. I've seen the ramifications of like what could happen if you break the contract and all that. So, yeah, yikes. Okay. Anyone else?
I mean, I can share mine. When she was younger, Violette's parents were assassinated, and her shitty uncle took over their house instead of her.
Okay. So is your shitty uncle currently in charge of the house?
Mm-hmm.
So a little more conflict maybe with House Laurent, and because your uncle would be the one that's sort of organizing this, like has kind of come up with this plan.
I think
I'm assuming
he says he's the one that came up with the plan. I think it was Violette's idea.
Okay.
I think that's
But
how
he's
their
the-
relationship goes.
he's the one with the capital and the name
Yeah.
and the head of the house, so he is taking charge of it. Okay, but you're doing all the work. All right, I like it.
Work, the worst thing to happen to me. Just kidding.
Fair.
It's dead
Or noble.
parents. It's an RPG.
of course.
Okay. Anyone else? I guess that just leaves us with Mouse, and you were thinking about that still.
Yeah, something along the lines of like, yeah, like the reason she wants to get
This gets into
revenge.
that. Yeah, your motivation here.
Yeah, which I think is partially like tied to like her bloodline, like maybe like someone in her family was also killed for being a missing.
I've got
Okay.
dead parents. In a way, Hadzel's kind of a dead parent.
Oh gosh.
Boo.
It took me like a full second to realize what you were saying.
I really like the idea that so you're thinking that you're actually like second generation misting or something, or like your parents were mistings or something like that, because that's something that's not really explored in like the original trilogy. Like most of like the mistings in the original trilogy were like the products of direct like noble actions. So having like your relative, your parent, who was a misting, and got like sought out, like got killed by the Steel Ministry.
Yeah, which
could
like
be-
adds to why she's like just nervous
Yeah.
about everything.
Yeah, I like
This is
that.
very real. Okay. Yeah. So I'll work out some of the details, but something like that.
Yeah, details are totally within all of y'all's purview. So that's pretty much, and then your destiny, y'all can come up with that too. And I would say even if you want to just have like a brief concept that you put down, and then kind of flesh it out more as you get into the character's head and kind of play them out more, that's fine too. Just kind of having a desire for like, okay, what is my next step? Which most of that I think ties in with like your reasons for being with the crew too, for most of you.
Yeah, because the destiny is like how the character sees
Yeah,
themselves and their future.
yeah.
Okay.
I think I just thought of what for Hadzel and like the thing he's looking for House of Lariel. So again, kind of a story thing. The Lord Ruler, once upon a time, was a man, ascended to godhood, and the great houses are like the descendants of his friends from when he was a man, right? Maybe House of Lariel has a journal from like their original house person, and so Hadzel wants to find that because his ultimate goal and like the double purpose of being a court historian genealogist is he's trying to prove once and for all that there is no difference between noble people and Ska. It's just, hey, the nobles were the friends of the Lord Ruler way back when.
Yeah. I like that.
In nepotism, am I right?
Yeah, I mean, essentially it's an extreme case of nepotism. It's what set up this government. Cool. So we can talk about more of that if we want. We're getting into like the last 30 minutes here, so I just want to make sure we cover all of our bases. The only other thing after calculating all your stuff, putting in your stats, is choosing your props. I think everybody did that last time. Props are your starting equipment for this game, except they function differently. Since this game kind of builds itself as being, told more like a movie, more cinematically. You don't really like lose your props. You don't have like an exhaustion of them. You're not gonna break a weapon or run out of your allomantic metals. You just only get a certain number of uses like per scene. So I think everybody picked their equipment when we started out with. I know ZaKeer's got like 6 sets of bones.
I dumped my resources, so now I only have 2 sets of bones.
Oh,
okay.
okay. Only 2?
Only 2. Okay. Did anybody else like change anything with like their resources where their props changed significantly, or character choices that made them change their prop significantly?
Should look at it.
And I know. Oh, good.
Oh, just like currently, I have a cane, a horse, and a pet, but I don't think I need a horse and a pet. What am I, a druid? No. So I'll relook at the things.
Yeah. There's stuff on the list like their weapons, armor, shields, animals, mounts, and vehicles. So you get your typical stuff, daggers, dueling canes, spears, different types of armor and shields that you can take that will give you defense bonuses, and then your like we said, you can have pets and horses, and then there's a whole section of tools to pick from, which range from everything from banned books, different like craftsman's tools, lock picks, and then your typical affair for if you're going to be a misting or a mistborn. You can take your misting or mistborn vials, your metal mines if you're a ferrochemist, bones if you're a Khandra, and then your good standard, very impractical mist cloak.
But it looks so cool, though.
It looks so cool, except for it's a cloak that's been torn to shreds. So it's like the noisiest piece of equipment you could possibly have for skulking around. Was somebody here that shared the video of like being a Mistborn, the YouTube video that?
I need to watch that.
I shared it in chat.
Yeah, I think RJ shared it. It's like how to Mistborn, and it's the funniest thing I have seen related to the this series. Talking about how ridiculous Mistborns can be. Speaking of Mistborn,
sit, they perch.
They perch. Violette, you took your stuff too. So for the rest of the group, what did you end up taking?
For me, I have a Mistborn vial, a sack of copper clips, leather armor, and a mist cloak.
Okay. Alrighty. Anyone else have anything especially fun they want to share?
Mouse has got some booze. Just in
That's
case.
fun.
You know.
I've got bones.
Just bones.
I still have a spare metal mine that I'm trying to figure out which one I want it to be, because I don't know mechanically if one makes more sense than the others. Like, I don't know that I'm ever really going to need the brass metal mine to store warmth, but I don't know. I could just make the spare one like the copper metal mine that's dedicated to the like histories and procedures and stuff.
Yeah, having an extra copper metal mine might make sense narratively. Like I said, most of the mechanics of there aren't really like mechanics to having more than one, but like narratively, it may come into play. Especially getting into people finding out if you're a keeper and trying to like preserve the knowledge that you have. There could be lots of different ways to use that. Okay. So that's pretty much it we've talked about character creation. We have your crew. Most of it is just like y'all fleshing out your backstory, which I don't expect, nor do I really want anyone to just like write up a full backstory to send to me. You want to put anything on your sheet, to fill out the sections there, and we'll talk amongst ourselves, like collaborate on how we want to tie in more backstory during the game, because I want to keep it loose so that we can really make things feel personal as the game comes up, and leave blank spaces where we need to be. Does anyone have any questions? So we can do a couple of things because we still have some time here. I talked a little bit about kind of going over some like rules stuff, just to like orient kind of some expectations, things that y'all should check out, how the game plays. If you guys have any questions on any parts of like the crew building and this other connections that we haven't covered enough, or have any specific rules questions for how you're creating your characters, we can kind of talk about those as a group, just to make sure you're all optimized. Does anyone have any thoughts?
I guess a question I had was about advancements, because I know all the powers have different ratings, which I'm not sure what the ratings, how that affects things, but like I know Farrakemi, they all start at 3, but some of the examples I saw in the book were like 5 or 6 and things like that, and it's like you can increase them through advancements. So I guess the question is this, like, how do we get advancements? Is it like when we fail a roll, like in Masks, or just at the end of scenes we get advancement
I'll get XP.
points?
I'll get XP. So the first question is to the ratings. Based on my understanding, is your ratings is how many dice you're adding to your pool when you are burning that metal. So if you have a rating of 5 in brass, when you are using brass to help with in a contest, then you are adding 5 dice to your pool when you roll. So it can give you that extra boost.
And at least for like Allomancy, you could like flare it, so you could like go up a rating, but that like how long goes down.
Yes.
Because you're like burning it faster. I don't know how it works for Farrakemi though, but I was like looking at that earlier.
Yeah, that's a good.
We can flare in Farrakemi.
Okay.
I don't think
You could.
so.
There was something about charges. Like if you spend 10 charges.
Yes. Yeah.
So this says for each full hour of Farrakemi spends storing, a number of charges are added to the metal mine equal to the character's rating with that metal, or up to the limit described in each metal's chapter, whichever is lower. Let's see. Breathers, tapping a metal mine. See, a Ferrochemist may choose to tap anytime he or she takes an action or makes a roll. Charges are tapped after an action is declared, and pools are formed before the dice are rolled. When a single action involves multiple rolls, characters must tap independently for each roll. Using charges. A single charge to increase a dice pool or enhance a personal attribute. You can do 5 charges at a time to automatically add a nudge to a roll. We can talk about that more with the rolls in a bit, but essentially nudge is like an extra perk or benefit you get if you succeed on a roll. And then 10, if you use 10 charges at a time to increase the outcome of his or her action by 1 or to achieve a similarly impressive effect. So that's kind of how you would, like, the Ferrochemist's idea of like flaring metals is you've stored more so you can spend more later on. So you get to I think the difference with Ferrochemists and Allomancers is where you can add to your charges as you go, where Allomancers are limited by their vials, how many charges they have access to. And yeah, I would recommend for those of you that have the that have powers, it's going to be especially more homework for our Mistborn and Ferrochemist is in the chapters like I think it's chapter 5. Yeah, it's going to give you a list of the metals, and it's going to give you kind of the rules for using each of those metals. So it's going to be a lot of extra kind of reading for all of you that have access to more. So I would just kind of familiarize with those. So basically, we could reference those as we go. I don't think anyone's going to have all of this memorized. You were asking about advancements too.
How to get XP.
How to get XP. Let's see. I believe it's with story beats, but so it says advancements can be earned by individuals or the whole crew depending on the circumstances. Most of the time, you can expect to earn 1 to 3 advancements per session. So that's what we'll go with, based on what the previous conditions, which the previous conditions apply, and how much your hero's actions contribute to the game. Number may vary depending on the pace of the particular game or how crucial the events of each session and the overall story are. You can have no more than 20 advancements at a time. So there should be, I think I gave you all a place on your sheet to track advancements.
You did.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. Good job, me. You will be able to keep track of those there. So I'll probably do the same thing that I've done. What was the game I'm thinking of? I'll give you a flat amount each session, somewhere between 1 and 3. I'm going to look at the advancement stuff and make a decision there. I may change it depending on what happens in the session, but I don't really like doing that because I feel like no matter what happens during a session, it's all important. So I don't like saying that something was more important than something else. So it'll probably be somewhere around like 2 advancements per session. And then you spend the advancements. I think there is a chart on page 122 in the PDF that gives you a list of what you can do. So things like the lowest cost advancement is 2, and you can change a trait. So you can take one of your traits that you have and you can change it to something else. 4 would be gaining a new stunt or gaining a trait. 5 advancements is to increase an attribute or increase standing. 6 is recovering from a mortal burden or increasing a power rating. That's how you would increase your ferochemic or allomantic abilities, or your mimicry if you're a Khandra. And then 10, you can become a misting savant or snap into a misting if you didn't previously have those powers. 15, you can gain a new blessing if you're a Khandra. And then 20, you can become a keeper or snap into a Mistborn. So with those kind of big ones of like becoming a keeper, snapping into a misting, snapping into a mistborn, that's probably something where we're gonna have to talk about like narratively leading up to it and how it's gonna work out and how that makes sense, especially with the keeper part, because at this point keepers are very well regulated by the Empire, so it would be we'd have to, and the only person this really applies to is Ryan, so we'll talk about that if that comes up. If you want to,
I'm stubborn muggle, I think.
Let's see. Yeah, okay, yeah. So becoming a keeper, you have to be terrorist without powers only. So if you start as a terrorist person, but you were not a keeper, then you can become one. And then there are hemalurgic spikes, but I'm not going to deal with those right now. Yeah, so that's pretty much how that works. Any questions related to any of the advancement stuff? Okay. Like I said, I'll find it, because we're playing this game every 2 weeks and stuff. It'll probably be 2 or 3 XP that I'm going to give y'all, each of you, per session. Unless y'all rather me give you a lump sum that you can divvy out amongst yourselves, but I think that gets a little wacky and also can lead to some arguments later on, so I'd rather avoid that.
Let's give it all to Mouse, and then they can snap into a Mistborn.
Yeah, because I'd be giving you all 15. I think if I went by 3, it'd be 15 XP per session. So I'm gonna have somebody's gonna snap like session 1. Hey, we're gonna give all our XP to this person first session, all our XP to this person second session.
Yeah, we'll just all take turns.
Everyone snaps into Mistborn.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and this is a beefy book, so I'll put that out there first of all as my warning. I'm gonna try to keep from having to like dig into the book for rules as much as possible. I'm gonna familiarize myself with the basics for, especially the Allomantic stuff. I think it's gonna be the hardest to kind of, the Allomantic and Feruchemic powers be the hardest to kind of make sure that we're utilizing correctly. We're just gonna roll with it the best we can, and we'll make up rulings as we go for the sake of time. The part that I wanted to talk about just very briefly, there's a section for all of you on page 568. For those of you that don't have the PDF at home, that's why.
I haven't gotten that far in the book yet.
This is a beefy rule book. There are 585 pages. There is a basic rule summary there. I've copied a lot of that into the role page, into the assets, so you can reference those, so that things can move smoother and you can get the gist of the rules. One thing I wanted to spell out is the difference between contests and conflicts. Contests are basically your like one-off ability checks. That's usually they're going to be unopposed, or they're either going to be unopposed or opposed contests. So the examples here for like attribute contests are like arm wrestling, trickery, lying, seduction, intimidation. So something that's not like a full conflict, but you're trying to overcome an obstacle using your stats. So it can be against somebody, an NPC or a PC, but it also we can have unopposed ones as well. So I'll either set a like task difficulty that you're trying to do, trying to accomplish, or it'll be based on somebody else's roles. The way that contests work is this game uses a dice pool. I'm going to pick an attribute, standing, or power, which I believe kind of relates to whatever the thing is you're trying to do based on what you have described to me, and we can negotiate for that. The pool is going to grow by 1 if you can apply your a trait to it. If you have if there's a burden that you're exploiting, if you have tools that apply, or if the circumstances call for it. The pool of dice that you roll can't be bigger than 10. If it goes beyond 10, then you get a free nudge, which, like I said before, nudges are this game's like additional benefits or perks. So if you succeed on the roll and you have, if you've earned nudges, then you can kind of describe how things go in your favor. I'll set the difficulty. So there's I put the list of how difficulty works. So difficulty 1 is going to be simple. Difficulty 5 is going to be nearly impossible. And then you roll the dice that you've accumulated in your pool. The highest matching pair is your result. So if you roll if the difficulty is a 2 and you roll a set of 2s, then you succeed on the contest. If you roll any 6s, those become nudges. So any 6s you roll on an ability check is it can give you additional benefits if you then succeed on it. Whatever you roll, or whatever your initial, or when you roll your dice, whatever your outcome is, whatever your highest matching set is, how that compares to what the difficulty was determines kind of like what the outcome is going to be, and there's a chart for that too. If you've succeeded by 6, that is a godlike performance. If you fail by 6, it is a catastrophic performance. But mostly you're going to end up at like you succeeded by 1 or 2, or failed by 1 or 2, and the complications that come from it are going to be kind of proportional about how much you succeed or fail. Does all kind of make sense, basically? So you make the pool, apply any benefits, roll the dice, look at which dice have paired or matched. So that's the basic premise. That's what we're going to be doing most of the time. Then there are conflicts, which are a little more complicated. That's like your combat encounters, or like a social conflict or something. It's like bigger, grand scale, going to take multiple turns trying to overcome an enemy. There's a couple of stages that you go through, and the first time we do this, we're probably going to take it slow and go kind of piece by piece. But I wanted to point out a couple of things. So the way that the conflict starts is, rather than like rolling initiative and then everybody takes their turns and rolls their dice and determines outcomes based on like turn-based combat, this is a little less turn-based. Basically, as we look at everyone's wits, so whatever your total wits are, the person with the lowest wits declares what action they're going to be doing first, and then we go from there until the person with highest wits declares what they're going to be doing. So we kind of, the way the book recommends it gives an example that I think is on page, I think it's earlier in the book. I'll find the page with the samples on it. But the way the book kind of describes it is we more kind of play out the scene like, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go and I'm going to try to, if we're like in a combat encounter, it's like, I'm going to try to bar the door. And then the next person says, well, okay, so they're doing that. I'm going to go and I'm going to go try to get help from somebody else. And then, we kind of play things out that way, giving everybody a chance to solidify whatever they're doing. When you declare what you're going to do, you also build your dice pool at the same time. So if you say like, I'm going to go bar the door, I might tell you, okay, that sounds like a physical task. So you're going to do the same thing that you would do with a contest, where you pull the dice, you make your dice pool based on your physical trait, and then any bonuses that you might get from it, from your tools or traits or anything like that. And then once everybody's gone through that, we've kind of played out the scene and saw how it's going to go. I'll take my turn for anybody, like if there's whatever the adversaries are that you're going up against, they'll go somewhere in that order too. You're going to go, the next step is that you will then take that declared action. So we resolve it in the order of who has the largest pool that they've created. So let's say, Savannah decided hers and she ended up with a pool of 8, and Alex decided his, and his pool ended up being 12 or something. Then Alex would go first in that round in like determining his action. Now, the part where it kind of gets a little bit different is that there are a couple of like idiosyncrasies to this. Is that you don't have to roll all 12 dice. Whatever pool you've created, you can roll as many dice as you want from that. Whatever dice you don't roll, go to your defense. So if anybody takes an action against you, then you will roll those dice to overcome that action. So if you've heard the enemy, if you're aware that the enemy is going to be, trying to stab you as part of their action, then you might want to save some dice to try to defend against that, because otherwise you're going to be defenseless. Does that make sense? You can also change your action stuff too. There are penalties if you decide you're going to change what you're going to do. There are also some characters who might have reactions. If you have a stunt or an ability that lets you use your reaction, those will come into play too. I don't know if anybody has those, but if anyone does, we can talk about them as they come up. And then based on how much the people succeed or fail on your actions, you'll take damage from that. And that's it. That's how it works. It's I don't think it's more complicated than other game systems. It's just different than what we're probably used to with, like, more linear combat, like D20 systems. And like I said, we'll kind of play them out as we go. The first time we do it, it's probably going to be a little slow. I think that's it. The other thing I'll go ahead and put out there, so we've talked about a lot today, and I'm sure most of us will have forgotten most of this by the time we get to our session 1. But a couple things I want to put out. So Lines and Veils, most of the stuff we typically have in play will be in play, and I'll repost those as I need to. I wanted to specifically address some of the things that we talked about, like earlier in our stream, especially like the subject matter of this game is a bit dark, and I mentioned before, like, the kind of whole theme of this game is, the powerful, rich, corrupt leaders kind of taking advantage of the populace, and there's a lot of like dark subject matter that comes up in the book because of that. I'm going to steer away from the stuff that is on our Lines and Veils, things like sexual assault. That's I'm not going to have that in my games. For like torture and stuff like that, I prefer most of that happening off screen. It might happen, but kind of I usually put up a veil for that. I don't like to see that kind of stuff happening in roleplay. I don't like to roleplay that kind of thing. If anyone else has any like Lines and Veils they want to add, feel free to message me about it. The other part is just a general message for anyone watching and for my players as well. While the game deals with treating the Ska and the terrorist people as second-class citizens and trading them and selling them and buying them and things like that, the group here, I want the combined message of our group is that you are all people that stand against this stuff, because I think I don't really want to sit down and have arguments about why some of our noble characters think that the Ska are second-class citizens and deserve to be that way. That's not fun. I don't want to hear about that. I don't want to talk about that. I don't like telling you all to play your characters, but I feel confident in telling you all that you can't do that, because I think the general message should be of trying to overthrow these people to protect those that are disenfranchised and those who have been subjugated, and trying to push for equality in this world that does not seem to want to allow it. So we will try to handle those things as delicately as possible and have conversations where we need be, but I don't plan on making that in and of itself a central focus of the game, because as where I stand, at least, I don't feel as qualified to necessarily bring my own experiences to the table in dealing with that sort of thing. So most of this game will focus on the political intrigue and fighting the power and that sort of stuff. So does that make sense for everybody? All right. Let me think if there's anything else. So yeah, I'll put Lines of Veils in there. We'll talk about things. We can talk about that off screen. off stream, and when we get into between our sessions, because we're gonna have a couple weeks here until we get to our session 1. But I think that's pretty much it. Are y'all ready and excited to play this? Yes.
We're supposed to have a crew name. I just want
Are
everybody
we?
to think about it.
I mean, there is a spot for it on the sheet, but
That's
also
true.
Yes.
I just want
in the
everybody to think
books,
about
it's
it.
all- yeah.
What team? Wildcats.
Gryffindor.
Yeah, I forgot that the crew name was on there. Was that something I added, or was
Yes.
that something that? Okay.
You put it on the sheet.
Yeah, it's right there.
Well,
right
no,
out
I
the
was-
concept.
I was checking to see if that was something that was on the character sheets that I based these off of, or if that's something that I.
As far as I know, in the books, it's always just like, crew leaders, crew.
The
Nope.
crew.
Crew name is on the
Yeah.
is on the official character
Yeah.
sheets, so I did.
So think about
Okay.
I did not
That's all
go
I'm saying.
renegade on that.
Well, I wonder if that's maybe like how, again, drawing from the books, Breeze's name isn't Breeze, Spook's name isn't Spook.
I
like,
don't know.
like Mouse would
Oh.
be her crew name.
So it's not the name of your crew; it's your crew
Your name within the crew.
within the crew.
Ah.
That probably makes more sense because I can't really think about how calling yourselves the Wildcats would really fit in with this.
I think we can.
Listen, if y'all want to come up with a crew name, I am okay and fine with that. But I do think you should also have your character's name and then their crew name, their criminal name, their alias.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I find aliases a little tedious in play a little bit.
okay.
So but that's just my personal preference. But I can
What I'll say is, you don't necessarily have to have. You could have a nickname or something that people would call you. I mean, if you don't have one and you think everyone just calls me Sacha, then we can stay with that. If you want to
mean-
leave it blank or not, but I know
Yeah.
like Morgan's playing a character named Mouse. I don't know if Mouse is going to be your name
Yeah.
or is going to be your crew name, or if
Yeah.
you're going to go with something else entirely.
So
Um,
it is. I will say it is it is her crew name, and I am open to suggestions because I think it's something that her crew gave her, not one that she picked.
Yeah.
So
I'm also fine with some of that stuff coming up organically too.
Mhm.
I don't imagine that your crew's been together very long. If you have like an alias that you think you go by that is important for your character, put that on your sheet. We'll talk about that when we get to session 1. If you don't, that is totally fine too. So,
In place of a
yes.
crew name, I'm going to use it as my ska name whenever I'm in that form.
yeah.
okay.
Also, Hadzel is going to basically ignore the crew name, except in like very specific job circumstances, because the Terrors are just always, oh, you're Mistress Violette or you're Master Sacha. Just always
Okay.
Mistress Master.
Always the name.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I came up with
Okay.
Gab, like Gift of Gab.
Yeah.
I like it.
It works.
But yeah, you guys are welcome to play around with that. And if y'all want to come up with a name for your thieving crew, you can do that too. But unless anybody has something super good right now, we're at 2 minutes left, so I don't want to.
Super good right now, thieving crew.
Super good right now, thieving crew. Awesome. Great. Well, I'm really looking forward to this, y'all. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully, everybody enjoys the system. But I think even kind of divorcing ourselves from the system, I think this is going to be a fun group of people to play with, and it's going to be a fun group of characters. Anyone have any last minute stuff before we get going? No? All right. Thank you, everyone out there, for watching. Very much appreciate the contributions from the chat. We will be back in hopefully 2 weeks to come to you with our session 1 of this game. We, like I said, I've got some travel and stuff going on the next few weeks. So if there is a schedule change we have to postpone, we will definitely let you know. But hopefully we'll be back here on the 17th to get this started. Join us tomorrow on Sunday for our next session of Thursday's Children, the game that Savannah runs, where we're continuing our monster hunting escapades in the wild north of Sweden, I think. Scandinavia. I don't know exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, our schedule, you can get a full look of that below our faces if you're watching us live on Twitch. Anybody have any announcements or anything for other shows that they want to put out there before we get going?
I'll do one. Coming out with me on Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/lbhackemup. We're missing some people, so we're doing a one-shot this week, and we're going to play Monster of the Week.
Awesome.
So it's going to be really fun.
Very cool.
You know, I love Monster of the Week.
Anyone else? Yeah. Anyone else? I don't know. Okay. Well, thank you once again, everyone, for watching, and thank you to my lovely players for making this a joy to run. I am very much excited for this next campaign. And we will see everyone, hopefully in 2 weeks. And until then, good game, and good night, Internet.